So 1.5 million. I want you to just let that number sit in your head for a second.
It's a huge number.
Right. I mean, 1.5 million. That is the population of a major city.
Yeah.
Like Philadelphia or Munich.
Yeah.
But today, we aren't talking about a city. That is the staggering number of government officials who were investigated and punished. And that's just in the first 5 years of this unprecedented ongoing political campaign half a world away.
Which is just wild to think about. I mean, it completely reshaped the political landscape of a global superpower.
Totally.
And, understanding the sheer scale of it requires looking under the hood of a machine that most people, well, they really only see from the outside.
Exactly. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we are exploring a really fascinating paper by Julio Rios. He's from the Spanish Institute of Strategic Studies.
Right, the IEE.
Yeah, and he takes this highly detailed look at Chinese President Xi Jinping's massive anti-corruption campaign. We're tracking this from his rise to power back in 2012 all the way to the present day.
It's a massive timeline.
It is. We are looking at the raw mechanics of this campaign. But before we get into it, I want to be really clear with you listening. As your guides today, our mission isn't to endorse any political system,
Right, of course not.
We're not here to judge the government's actions or push a viewpoint. We are simply here to unpack the staggering data, the history, and the underlying philosophy that's presented in this source material.
Yeah, keeping it strictly to the analysis. And to really grasp the magnitude of this, we need to set the stage a bit.
Please do.
So if we go back to 2012, when Xi Jinping assumed the role of General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, the internal dashboards of their system were basically blinking red.
Like a full-on crisis.
Exactly. Corruption had become completely ubiquitous. We were talking about, systemic bribery, rampant nepotism.
Just everywhere.
Everywhere. Massive embezzlement and the widespread abuse of public resources across almost every single level of government.
And the public was furious about this, right? I mean, you had officials flaunting luxury watches on state salaries.
Oh, yeah, the Watch Brothers scandals and things like that.
Yeah, and it was causing this massive crisis of legitimacy for the party.
It was. And what's fascinating here is that she didn't respond with, a standard temporary police action.
Or a PR stunt.
Right, no quick public relations cleanup. He framed this corruption as an absolute existential threat to the state itself.
Wow.
He made the case that eradicating it wasn't just about good governance. It was a fundamental requirement to save the ruling party from historical ruin. It was framed as a literal battle for survival.
Man. To put this in perspective for you, I want you to imagine you are tasked with cleaning up a massive multinational corporation.
Okay.
And we are talking about an entity with over 1 billion shareholders.
Yeah.
But here is the catch. The HR department, the internal auditors, the board of directors, and the CEO, they're all the exact same entity.
Right. There's no outside help coming.
Exactly. There's no outside regulatory body, no SEC, no independent federal courts to call in. You have to use the company to investigate the company.
That analogy perfectly isolates the structural challenge here. Because to understand how China is attempting this massive internal cleanup, we first have to understand the unique philosophical framework driving it.
Because it's not like the West.
Not at all. It is fundamentally different from Western models that, rely on external checks and balances.
Okay, let's unpack this. He also notes that early on, Xi introduced this concept of shutting power within the system.
Yes.
He wanted this scientific, systematic approach to anti-corruption rather than just chaotic purges. And that brings us to a specific term the paper focuses on, which is efficacy.
Right.
Now, I had never encountered this word before reading this. What exactly is an efficacy in practice?
It's essentially the conceptual engine of their entire system. So in a liberal political framework, a government derives its legitimacy from the process itself, right?
Voting.
Yeah, electoral procedures, civil participation, human rights, the separation of powers, all that.
The process is the point.
Exactly. An efficacy, however, bypasses independent or civic oversight. Its legitimacy relies entirely on output.
Output, okay.
Yeah, it's a system built on the premise of delivering efficient governance that provides tangible, material benefits to the population.
So we're talking about what, like safety and money?
Pretty much. Physical security, social stability, rapid infrastructure development, and just general economic growth.
So the implicit contract with the public becomes We may not offer independent oversight or civil liberties in the Western sense, but hey, we keep the streets safe.
We build high-speed rail networks faster than anyone else.
Right, and we continuously lift the standard of living.
Precisely, that's the dynamic. The model aims to prove that strict, centralized disciplinary governance can provide order and growth more effectively than systems prioritizing individual civil liberties.
I see.
But, and this is a big but, for an efficacy to function, the machinery of the state, which is the party itself, has to remain ruthlessly efficient and pure.
Because if the machine is corrupt, the output fails.
Exactly. And that operation requirement birthed another core concept Xi introduced around 2015.
The self-revolution.
Yes, self-revolution.
It sounds like a permanent state of internal vigilance, like you can never relax.
And the author notes it is designed to be exactly that. The party leadership is hyper-aware of the historical cycle of dynastic decay.
Right, the whole rise and fall of empire.
Yeah, where an empire rises, consolidates power, inevitably rots from the inside due to corruption, and then collapses. She pushed the idea that the party must constantly, relentlessly purge itself to maintain purity.
Wow.
In fact, in 2021, this concept of self-revolution was formally codified as the second answer to avoiding historical decline.
Okay, wait. If self-revelation is the second answer, what was the first answer?
Good question. The first answer is attributed to Mao Zedong.
Ah, okay.
His solution to avoiding decay relied on internal dynamism and mass public movements.
So basically keeping the system in a state of chaotic forward motion.
Essentially, yes. So by framing institutionalized self-revolution as the second answer, Xi really elevated his own ideological contribution to the same historical tier as Mao.
That's a massive flex.
It is. The system now views this strict internal policing as its elixir of eternal youth.
I have to jump in here with a huge structural question, though.
Go for it.
If the very power structure that generates the corruption is the exact same power structure fighting it, isn't that an inherent contradiction?
That is the big question.
Like, can a closed system genuinely self-revolutionize without the friction of independent outside oversight?
And that structural contradiction is the central tension of the entire campaign. Can the disease engineer its own cure?
Right.
To analyze that, we have to move away from high-level state philosophy and look at the actual root causes. We need to understand why corruption took hold so deeply in the first place.
And look at, like, the intersection of rapid economic shifts in traditional culture.
Exactly.
So the source material highlights several systemic drivers. There's the lack of independent oversight we just discussed, sure, but it also points to massive state monopolies and an entrenched culture of impunity among the elites.
Yeah, definitely.
But the factor that really stands out to me is the cultural weight of Guangxi.
Ah, Guangxi. It's a critical concept, and it's frequently mistranslated simply as networking.
Right.
But that entirely misses the depth of the concept. It operates much more like an informal, legally binding social contract.
It is an ecosystem of reciprocal favors, right?
Yes.
Where social debt is treated as seriously as financial debt. You don't just like hand out a business card at a mixer. You build these deep, multi-generational networks of mutual obligation.
And fierce loyalty.
Exactly. Loyalty that totally blurs the lines between business, politics, and family.
It does, and it creates a profound Confucian paradox for officials.
How so?
While on one side, Chinese society relies on these dense personal networks based on deep mutual trust as the very glue of social cohesion.
Oh.
To ignore a favor or fail to protect a member of your network is deeply, deeply shameful. But simultaneously, public duty demands rigid, high moral standards and total impartiality.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a massive conflict of interest built right into the culture.
It is exceptionally difficult to achieve a benevolent, clean government when your deepest cultural instinct is to fiercely protect your network.
While your job requires you to ruthlessly police them.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because it's not just a cultural clash. The paper highlights this fascinating psychological angle.
Oh, the 2014 report.
Yes, by an academic named Guangxiculture. She didn't just blame bad apples or culture. She argued that the political machine itself actively engineers corruption by creating an emotional void in its officials.
Yeah, her analysis provides a very human look at a systemic failure.
I thought so too.
Because the career path for these officials often involves grueling working conditions. They are routinely stationed in remote provinces, separated from their spouses and children for years at a time.
That's so brutal.
It is. And they manage immense portfolios, sometimes overseeing billion-dollar infrastructure projects, yet their official state salaries remain remarkably low.
Imagine being a local party secretary, holding the keys to massive corporate wealth, right? Working 80 hours a week, living hundreds of miles from your family,
Yeah.
and making perhaps, I don't know, $15,000 or $20,000 a year on paper.
It's a recipe for disaster.
The system practically begs the individual to seek psychological and financial compensation through illicit means.
It really does. But, that temptation wasn't always so globally significant. During Mao's era, the country faced such severe economic hardship that there simply wasn't much wealth to extract.
Right, everyone was equally poor.
Basically. Mao warned of the sugar-coated bullets of bourgeois corruption, but the ammunition was pretty limited back then.
But then Deng Xiaoping opened up the economy in the late 1970s and 80s, right? Creating this unprecedented economic boom.
Yeah, and that transition from a strict command economy to a mixed market created a massive friction point.
Because suddenly there's money everywhere.
Exactly. Suddenly you had a bottleneck where immense private wealth and foreign investment had to pass through underpaid, highly powerful local bureaucrats.
Just to get like land permits or factory approvals.
Right, or resource rights. These sugar-coated bullets became an endless artillery barrage of kickbacks. Local clans built massive financial empires, and that severely weakened the central authority in Beijing.
Okay, so I know early on in Xi's tenure, the strategy to combat this was famously dubbed tigers and flies.
Yes.
What did that actually look like on the ground during his first term? We're talking 2012 to 2017.
It was an era of pure shock and awe. The tigers were the supposedly untouchable, high-ranking political elites.
The big guys.
Right. And the flies were the low-level bureaucrats extracting daily bribes. The campaign targeted both ends of the spectrum simultaneously.
Now we're hide.
Exactly. They also deployed fox hunters, which were these specialized teams tasked with tracking down corrupt officials who had smuggled wealth abroad.
And forcing them back to China. Right.
Yep. Bringing them back to face the music.
The names of the tigers they took down sent shockwaves through the global intelligence community. I mean, Yu Young Kang, a former state security czar and member of the highest ruling body, sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah.
Bo Xilai, the incredibly powerful leader of the Chongqing municipality, life in prison.
And Sun Zengkai.
Yes, Sun Zengkai, a man widely considered to be a potential successor to Xi Jinping himself, removed and handed a life sentence. This is the period that generated that 1.5 million punished officials statistic we mentioned at the very top of the show.
Yeah, and the sheer velocity of those arrests fundamentally destabilized the existing power networks.
I can imagine.
But this brute force approach triggered a massive unintended consequence.
Which was?
Widespread bureaucratic paralysis.
Oh, because the safest action for a bureaucrat became no action at all.
Precisely. Bureaucrats realized that authorizing a new project or signing a contract carried an enormous risk of being retroactively investigated for taking a bribe.
Even if they hadn't taken one.
Even if they were completely clean. So local officials simply stopped making decisions.
Wow.
The gears of the government began to seize up. Economic initiatives stalled because taking initiative was suddenly far too dangerous.
So the shock and awe created a side effect that threatened the efficacy itself.
Exactly.
Because if the government stops functioning, the results-based legitimacy fails. People don't get their high-speed rails.
Right.
So moving into Xi's second term, from 2017 to 2022, Beijing realized they couldn't just rely on endless chaotic purges. They needed a permanent institution.
And that realization birthed the National Supervisory Commission, or the NSC, in 2018.
Okay, the NSC.
Yeah, the NSC was a structural game changer. It merged the state's legal mechanisms with the party's internal disciplinary bodies.
So they combined forces.
Exactly. And suddenly, this single commission had jurisdiction not just over party members, but any public official. We're talking executives and state-owned enterprises, hospital directors, university administrators.
Anyone tangentially related to the state. The paper details their operational power, and it heavily features a mechanism called Luzy.
Yes, Luzy.
Tell me about that.
So Luzy essentially translates to retention in custody. It allows NSC investigators to detain suspects at undisclosed locations for up to 6 months?
6 months. Undisclosed locations.
Yes. During this time, the detainee has absolutely no access to lawyers, no contact with their family, and no formal charges filed.
That is terrifying.
It completely bypasses the standard criminal justice system. The psychological pressure of Luzy's is designed to extract full confessions before a case ever sees a courtroom.
And they paired this extra legal authority with a massive technological upgrade, right?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't just rely on informants anymore. They integrated AI platforms and big data.
Massive amounts of data.
The algorithms now cross-reference banking records, travel logs, social ties, and even the spending habits of an official's extended family.
Just flagging anomalies in real time.
That's wild. And they use these tools to crack open massive financial conglomerates like Evergrande.
They did.
And the ultimate punishments escalated too. I mean, they executed Li Zhongmin, the former chairman of Huarong Asset Management, for accepting staggering amounts of bribes.
Yeah, the evolution from term 1 to term 2 is striking. They moved from swinging a broadsword to operating an algorithmic scalpel.
That's a great way to put it.
The NSC and its data tools provided unprecedented visibility into the financial lives of millions of people.
But we have to acknowledge the dual utility of that scalpel.
Of course.
While it undoubtedly eradicated rampant daily bribery, it also provided a perfectly legal, highly popular mechanism to systematically sideline any remaining political rivals.
Independent factions, yeah.
Right. It ensured absolute, unquestioned loyalty right before Xi secured his norm-breaking third term in 2022.
The political consolidation was inseparable from the anti-corruption mandate. Centralizing discipline fundamentally centralized power.
So, if we look at the timeline here, a decade of sweeping purges, 1.5 million people punished, the creation of an all-powerful extra-legal oversight commission, and an AI panopticon monitoring every transaction.
It's quite the resume.
Right. You would assume the problem has been solved, or at least reduced to a manageable hum.
You would think so.
But the data coming out of Xi's third term tells an incredibly surprising story.
The narrative takes a sharp turn here. So, at a Central Commission for Discipline Inspection conference in January 2025, the leadership formally acknowledged a really difficult reality.
That corruption isn't dead.
Worse! Corruption isn't just persisting. The instances of severe, complex corruption are actually on the rise.
The numbers in the report are just wild. In 2024 alone, courts concluded 30,000 cases of crimes related to public service.
Yeah.
That represents a 22.3% increase from the previous year. And they investigated a record 58 senior central officials in a single 12-month span.
The crackdown is escalating, and the battlefield has shifted. The paper points to a massive ongoing pivot toward the military and defense industrial sectors.
Ah, the military. I read about the defense minister, Li Shangfu, being abruptly dismissed.
Yes, very suddenly.
And late last year, Admiral Miao Hua of the Eastern Theater Command was suspended. Now, the Eastern Theater Command is the specific military branch that oversees the Taiwan Strait, right?
Exactly. They are the tip of the spear for any potential military action regarding Taiwan.
So why purge them now?
Well, the rationale coming from Beijing is that purging the military is an urgent matter of combat readiness. If defense budgets are being siphoned off, or if equipment procurement is compromised by kickbacks.
The military can't actually fight.
Right. The military cannot function in a modern conflict. I mean, we've seen reports hinting at fundamental flaws in missile silos and equipment testing due to graft.
But just like the civilian purges, this sweeps away veteran military commanders who might harbor differing strategic views, right? Further cementing absolute control over the armed forces.
It achieves both goals simultaneously, yeah.
So what does this all mean? We have this massive institutional machine, yet the numbers of investigations are going up, and the military is undergoing a massive shakeup.
It's a paradox.
Yeah. If we step back and try to objectively quantify the success of this 12-year endeavor, where do they actually stand?
Well, one of the few independent metrics we can look at is the Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index.
Okay, the CPI.
Yeah. It scores countries on a scale from 0, meaning highly corrupt, to 100, meaning very clean. When Xi launched this campaign in 2012, China scored a 39 out of 100.
Wow.
Yeah, placing them 80th in the world.
A score of 39 implies that bribery is just a daily expected friction cost of doing business, like you just factor it into your budget.
Exactly. But through the intense purges of those first 2 terms, the score did show measurable improvement.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. By 2021, they had climbed to a peak score of 45. The blatant, conspicuous consumption by officials had largely vanished from public view.
So the broadsword and the algorithmic scalpel were changing behavior, at least on the surface.
They were, but then we look at the most recent data.
Uh-oh.
By 2023, the score dropped back down to 42, and China fell to 76th place globally.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The momentum hasn't just stalled. The perception of corruption is creeping back up.
Man. Dropping back down after deploying an AI-powered surveillance state and an all-powerful disciplinary commission.
Yeah.
That is a massive indicator that something fundamental is missing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author of our source material draws a really definitive conclusion here.
What's that?
The campaign absolutely delivered potent short-term gains. It consolidated central power, it shattered entrenched local monopolies, and it terrified a generation of officials into compliance.
Sure.
But achieving sustainable long-term success on this scale is ultimately impossible under the current architectural framework.
Because we are back to that core contradiction we started with, the disease trying to be the cure.
Exactly. The author argues that you cannot permanently eradicate corruption without institutionalizing independent external checks.
Which they don't have.
No. That means an independent judiciary that doesn't answer to the politicians it investigates. It means allowing an unfettered media to investigate abuses without fear of reprisal and encouraging open civic scrutiny.
Sunshine is the best disinfectant.
Precisely. Those are the mechanisms that prevent a system from quietly rotting in the dark. But the current model explicitly rejects those mechanisms.
It's betting its entire survival on the ability to be its own judge, jury, and executioner.
It is.
It brings the corporate analogy full circle.
Yeah, it really does.
You can fire all the bad regional managers you want. You can install the most advanced surveillance software on every single employee's computer. But if the CEO, the board, and the HR department are entirely shielded from an outside audit, the rot doesn't disappear.
No, it just adapts.
Right. It just learns how to hide deeper within the architecture of the building itself.
Internal discipline can generate compliance through fear, but true, sustainable integrity requires a level of transparency that a closed system inherently cannot tolerate.
Well said. This has been a fascinating journey through a truly massive geopolitical undertaking.
It really is a massive topic.
To quickly summarize what we've covered today, we explored an unprecedented 12-year campaign attempting to engineer morality and efficiency through sheer political will.
We broke down the concept of efficacy.
Yeah, and the deep cultural roots of guangxi, the psychological emotional void of the bureaucracy.
The evolution from chaotic purges to the terrifying precision of the National Supervisory Commission.
And the ultimate paradox that, despite all these tools, corruption cases are currently surging as the focus shifts to the military.
It serves as a profound case study in the absolute limits of internal self-regulation.
Truly. Whether you are managing a small team, building a company, or simply observing how superpowers operate, this deep dive offers a masterclass in the mechanics of accountability.
Absolutely.
It really highlights how power flows and adapts when it is cornered.
The desire for a clean system is universal, but the structural mechanisms chosen to achieve it, those define the ultimate outcome.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We started by looking at a system, desperately trying to find the broken gears within its own massive machine. Right. But consider the long-term reality of their chosen treatment. If a system uses absolute unchecked power to eradicate the corruption that was originally bred by absolute unchecked power, is it actually curing the disease?
That's the real question.
Or is it just forcing the virus to evolve into a much quieter, more resilient strain? Something to mull over the next time you are asked to objectively police your own mistakes. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you next time.